What up, what up? Welcome to The Sweat. It's Monday, which isn't great. So how about I lean into that feeling and freak out a little? I got two DraftKings contributors here to rein me in, Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler. Guys, if you couldn't tell by my incredibly cryptic description, this is Overreaction Monday! So I'm going to go buck wild and jump to conclusions over some of the major storylines from yesterday, and you tell me if I'm overreacting or not. By the way, this is The Sweat. Welcome. Ding dong, the Patriots dynasty is dead. Woo. They did not look good against what was their biggest test of the season. So do you believe this is the beginning of the end, Jeff, and it all went down in Baltimore?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. No more wins for Patriots ever. Canceled the season, everything. No, I mean, look, the Patriots always do this. They lose a game on the road during the season, and it's just like everyone's shocked that they lost a game or something. I mean, they're 7-1. It's really not that big a deal. I mean, the Ravens gave out a good blueprint, I guess. I mean, if you can run the ball against the Patriots, you're going to have some success. I think everyone already knew that, though. So I don't really make that big a deal of it, to be honest. I'm not that shocked the Ravens won at home. It was a really big spot for them. I think more likely than not, you're going to see the Patriots take this game in. They got a good look at Lamar Jackson, how the Ravens operate their offense. And the most likely scenario that's going to happen in the playoffs, the Ravens are probably going to have to go through Foxborough. So I think it's a major overreaction if you're thinking about anything negative towards the Patriots. They're still one of the best defenses in the league, and probably going to have home field advantage in the playoffs.
Well, Reed, Jeff thinks I'm overreacting. What do you think?
I also think you had too many cups of coffee this morning.
No, 0. She's had 0 cups of coffee.
0D7.
Yeah. No, look, Jeff's right. And anyone who tries to run with Patriots, even if they started out like 0-2, like 0-2, 0-3, not 7-0, it's a fool's errand because Bill Belichick has these guys always ready to play and course correct in the middle of the season. And if you're a Patriots fan, you kind of like this. You kind of like that the blueprint is out there now that this is how you beat teams, or this is how you beat the Patriots, and now they can course correct. And if you just look at the schedule, and the AFC is pretty weak in terms of the full division, but if you just look at their schedule coming up after their bye, it's pretty tough. They got Philadelphia, they have Houston, Kansas City, among a few, Dallas over the next 4. And you have the Buffalo Bills right there at 6-2, and their schedule looks really easy. They got Miami, they got some couple of easy cake matchups. And so this isn't as easy as it has been in the past for the Patriots, but at the same time, this is Bill Belichick. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't freak out.
All right, I guess I'm just overreacting. Christian McCaffrey, he had 40.6 fantasy points at a $10,000 salary. Reed, is there no price too high to pay for this guy? We saw Jeff's board behind him. It said, I will not fade Christian McCaffrey. I will not fade Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So I think we can guess Jeff's going to say there is no price too high to pay. But what do you think?
Yeah, a little homage to Bart Simpson there. I like that, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, this guy's on pace for 26 total touchdowns. I mean, we saw what he can do. There is no price tag. He's on pace for over 1,700 rush yards. 84 catches. So, I mean, this is an unbelievable player in Carolina. It's kind of nice, too, that Cam Newton's been out for Christian McCaffrey because he's getting those goal line touches. You saw when they got really close there, they're handing it off to Christian McCaffrey. They're not doing anything exotic. They're just handing the ball off to this guy, and he's running with power. He's running with speed. Yards after the catch, he's not necessarily the first guy, and then we'll talk about someone else in a little bit, but at the same time, this guy is an all-around player. He's always on the field. So, yeah, there is no price that you wouldn't pay for this guy.
Jeff, that's your boy.
I mean, I don't know if he's my boy, but I've definitely come to the conclusion that he's not fadeable at anything under $12,000 in salary. He's definitely not fadeable against the Green Bay defense, which has been pretty given to the run. Made Melvin Gordon look good again last week. Look, the scary thing about Christian McCaffrey is, I mean, last week he didn't even really catch that many balls. He had 3 targets. Like he didn't go. Usually he operates as a #1 receiver and a #1 running back. He didn't really give you the PPR points last week, and he still went off. So, and it was a good Tennessee run defense. I mean, I just don't know if there's any scenario where you should be fading him at like under 12K in salary. I mean, this is a player who, like Reed mentioned, once Cam Newton stopped rushing the ball inside the red zone, has taken all the red zone snaps and never comes off the field inside the red zone. He's an elite receiver. This is nowhere near the salary you should start fading Christian McCaffrey.
If you're in season long right now, this is now where you start to get your handcuffs. Reggie Bonifant, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you need to own his backup. You see a little bit, right? Christian McCaffrey, he was slow to get up on a couple of plays. He's completely fine. but just make sure.
That's the only thing you worry about with Christian McCaffrey is if some kind of injury starts to develop and he does have to come off the field. Like, literally the only thing you should be worried about. Not even the matchup at this point.
Yep.
All right, Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett both went over 40-plus points this week against Tampa Bay. Lockett with 18 targets. I mean, has he moved his way into must-play territory here, Jeff?
I mean, I think most people in the fantasy football and just the NFL community know Tyler Lockett is, like, really good. He's put up elite numbers with Russell Wilson. I mean, the passer rating with Wilson and Lockett over the last 2 years, and we're not just talking about a small sample of games anymore. We're talking about, like, 20 games. It's insane. I mean, they just don't miss. They convert basically every target into a catch. The touchdown ratio when they target inside the red zone is insane. The problem is, and this has been a problem since last year too, is you don't know when the volume's coming with Tyler Lockett. Obviously, it came last week because it's the weakest secondary in the league going up against Tampa Bay. Your quarterback doesn't throw for 300 yards against Tampa Bay right now, by the way. There's troubles there. But the problem with Lockett is week in, week out. Is he going to get enough targets? I'd worry a little bit about that against San Francisco next week, although Seattle, going up against a really good run defense, maybe they'll have to throw to him again. So Tyler Lockett is, I don't want to say he's matchup proof, but he's not game flow proof. If Seattle's able to run the ball and get ahead, he's not going to see high volume.
Reed, you worried about his target volume here?
A little bit, and what Jeff didn't mention is that Josh Gordon is now going to be active, and he's going to be probably playing in that game against the 49ers on Monday night. And so now, how does that break down with himself, DK Metcalf, right, with Chris Carson, his guys in the back, in the backfield? How many targets are they essentially going to get? And if you're the Seattle Seahawks, you're looking to run first, right? Chris Carson has become an absolute monster. That's what you're planning to do. I mean, they're, I believe, third or fourth in terms of least passes per game by pass play percentage. And just look at the matchup this coming week. I mean, the 49ers are fifth worst for opposing wide receivers. So is he a must play? In season long, absolutely. But now when he starts to creep up into the price range where you see the Devontae Adams when he gets back to elite, the Julio Jones, the Chris Godwins, where he's now creeping above 7,000, that's where you get a little scared, because you never know when these guys and Schottenheimer are just going to, we're just going to hand the ball off 30-plus times to our running backs and be completely fine with that. So he's fantastic. The efficiency is through the roof again, like last year, but I don't think he's must play in DFS just yet.
All right, Melvin Gordon had his biggest game of the season, 25.9 fantasy points. Reed, are you ready to say he is back, baby, as a RB1?
No, because before, I mean, look at what this guy did before. Like, this is probably his first true game back, if we want to treat his first 3 games back as his preseason. This is a first game back where he had real production. I mean, before that, 30 yards, right, 12 carries, 15 total touches, right, wasn't really a factor in the pass game. And Austin Eckler is clearly the better back in this system. We saw Wisenhunt get out or he got fired, canned, as the offensive coordinator, and that probably was because the head coaching staff wanted to make Gordon their clear-cut #1 guy. Austin Eckler is #1. I talked about yards after catch. He's #1. He's got over 100 or close to 150 yards over what Christian McCaffrey has in terms of yards after the catch. This is what they need to have. This is what they need in that offense. And we saw it against Green Bay a little bit. You give the ball off to Melvin Gordon towards the end zone or towards the red zone. You hand the ball off to him, but he needs those 2 touchdowns just because you have a guy like Austin Eckler who gets production. So I'm not going to say he's #1 just yet. Jeff,
you ready to say he's #1?
I mean, he's certainly not in like the realm of back to elite #1 categories. Like, not up there with Zeke and those guys. Not even up there with like Nick Chubb or even Chris Carson. But he's creeping back in there, and I do feel like his usage is going to increase. He saw 63% of the snaps last week, which is his highest since he came back. I mean, Eckler was reduced to like 30%, 35%. So that's encouraging. But I mean, the Chargers did get out ahead. They tried to play a little bit different. They fed him early. He's still only at 4 yards per carry. So Reed is right. It's not like he's suddenly just shot out of a cannon last week. He is the one thing I'll say about Melvin Gordon. He's clearly going to be getting the red zone touches, it looks like, which is nice. So there's potential for him to keep this going and seeing like 60% of the 70% of the snaps. But no, I don't really think like he's playing good enough to all of a sudden take over and become a workhorse role. Austin Eckler is still playing him too. He's going to have a role even if the coaching staff wants to lean towards Gordon.
All right, thanks, guys. Sit tight. We're talking NBA in a couple of minutes, not with you two, after this week's edition of Who'd I Miss On.
Hi there, I'm Brendan Glasheen, and this is Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan. It's a segment we do every Monday during the football season. With Levy, we recap who we missed on when it comes to the plays from the NFL Sunday main slate. We're going to start with Greg Olson, Levy. His price tag of $3,500 was one of his cheaper ones since the beginning of the season. The value didn't emerge, though. 3 catches on 5 targets, 40 yards against the Titans. Single-digit fantasy points in every game since Week 4 for Olson. Any more good days ahead for the 34-year-old?
Yeah, I think one thing about Greg Olson is the usage is really good. I mean, he's playing almost every snap. He's running a route on almost all of Kyle Allen's dropbacks. He's running just as many routes as the elite tight ends like Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz and George Kittle, et cetera. I guess the problem is, and maybe as we've seen with Larry Fitzgerald and some of these other older players, that they just can't capitalize on that usage anymore, and they kind of hit the wall. And that's kind of what happens. So maybe we're at the point there with Greg Olson, but we'll see.
Dalvin Cook had his second lowest fantasy performance of 2019 in Kansas City, 15.6 DK points, which isn't awful, but it kind of is when you pay $9,500 for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. When we're paying $9,500, we have to be very, very careful. And in hindsight, paying $9,500 for a running back on the road in a tough environment to play when Dalvin Cook doesn't even play 100% of the snaps, I think was a little bit thin. You know, it's not like Christian McCaffrey. Dalvin Cook does lose some snaps to Alexander Madison, does lose some snaps to Amir Abdullah, and they're willing to use those guys in high leverage situations. So yeah, Dalvin Cook was fine. He went over 100 total yards. He caught 4 balls. He played 80% of the snaps, but 9,500, we need just a complete crystal clear scenario.
And finally, Robbie Anderson was a dud, just like the Jets as a whole down in Miami. Sam Darnold missed the receiver a few times, some potential chunk plays. Anderson reeled in 2 of 4 targets, 33 yards. Hard to trust any Jets now going forward, or is there some promise as Darnold continues to grow?
Yeah, you know, I was maybe overly optimistic on Sam Darnold. You know, I thought he struggled in some tough spots, New England and Jacksonville, and then he would get a soft home run spot against the Dolphins and really show out and play well. And it looked like that was going to be the case early, but he just wasn't able to sustain that. And for him not to be able to just completely shred against the Dolphins is a really, really bad sign for Sam Darnold. So, yeah, you know, if Sam Darnold's not playing well, Robbie Anderson is going to have trouble because he's also throwing to Jamison Crowder and Demaryius Thomas, and Chris Herndon's getting back soon. So it's not like Robbie is going to see 8-10 targets every week.
All right, that is who Adam Levitan missed on in Week 9. You can find his coverage on DK Live, the DK Playbook, and on Twitter at Adam Levitan. We'll catch you next Monday, Levy, to see who you missed on in Week 10.
Hey, I'm Carolyn Azak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Miami Heat keep proving that they are not a team to sleep on. After their 129-100 dismantling of the Rockets Sunday night, Miami is 5-1, matching the best 6-game start in franchise history. They outscored the Rockets 46-14 in the first quarter, the largest first-quarter lead in an NBA game since 1987. Jimmy Butler is proving he was a perfect fit for this Miami team. He contributed across every statistical category, putting up 18 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 4 steals, and 1 block in 27 minutes against Houston. 6 members of Miami scored in double digits, including James Johnson, who racked up 17 points in his season debut. Houston ended up losing by 29 points, but it was the poor start that did them in. Maybe the Rockets let the Miami nightlife get the best of them the night before. The Heat are undefeated at home this season, but will now hit the road for a tough West Coast swing. We'll see if Miami is the real deal when they go up against the Nuggets, Lakers, and a surprising Suns team on their upcoming trip.
Welcome back to The Sweat. We're taking this program to the hardwood and looking at tonight's 6-game slate in the association. Joining me now is Nick Whalen of RotoWire and Ryan Mogjosh, host of the 4 Seasons podcast for Ball is Life. All right, guys, this is NBA Building Blocks. So, simply put, who are you building your lineup around on tonight's 6-game slate? So, let's start with your building block at center. Who are you going with, Nick?
I think Andre Drummond is kind of the obvious guy tonight. You know, no Karl Towns, no Joel Embiid as they serve their 2-game suspensions. No Draymond Green, of course, for Golden State. But I'm going to go with Hassan Whiteside. I think he's, you know, kind of moves up a tier with all those guys being out. And certainly with Draymond Green being out for Golden State, with Kevon Looney being out for Golden State, I don't know who's going to keep Hassan Whiteside off the glass tonight. He's missed a couple games, you know, in the short term, but no Zach Collins, of course, with that separated shoulder for Portland. So we could see a minutes increase for a guy like Whiteside, who over the last couple of years has been so effective in fairly limited minutes just because of his style. They usually don't throw him out there for more than 24, 25 minutes. That's carried over to Portland from Miami. But I think without Zach Collins, I should say, Hassan Whiteside could be in for extended minutes tonight. So I like him quite a bit against this depleted Warriors team.
Ryan, who are you looking at?
I figured everybody would say Drummond, and you can't not mention Drummond. But I have a sidekick as far as the center goes. That's Al Horford tonight without Embiid. Last game against Portland was a thriller, and he put up 25, 5, 7, and 2 blocks. For 6.9K versus Suns team that likes to play fast, I also like Horford.
All right, how about we talk about forwards here, Ryan? Who are you going with?
I have a sneaky pick here.
Ooh.
It's not traditional. He's done me well this season so far. I like Taurean Prince tonight. When he plays a fast team against a fast team like they do tonight, like last game versus Houston, he had 51 fantasy points. Tonight they play the Pelicans, who also like to play fast. He's really good in the open court and in transition. Taurean Prince for 5.4K. I really like it the forward spot.
All right, Nick, who are you looking at?
I like the Prince pick a lot. I think you could look at the other side of that game and go Brandon Ingram as well. Those are two fast-paced defenses, like Ryan said, two bad defenses. I think there's a lot to exploit there. But I'll highlight Tobias Harris going up against the Suns. He's taken at least 15 shots in each of his last 4 games. He's playing huge minutes for this team, one of the more top-heavy teams in the NBA, coming off of one of his best games of the year, Saturday against Portland. This is another matchup where both teams are playing fast, a little bit of a better defensive matchup. I know Phoenix looks good defensively so far, but I feel like something has to give, and eventually, that's going to wear off a little bit, whereas I think Philly is a legitimately good defense. I think with, one more game without Joel Embiid, I think this is an opportunity for Harris to step up again.
All right, what about a guard, Nick? Who are you looking at there?
This came down to Kyrie and Drew Holiday for me, again, kind of focusing on that Brooklyn and New Orleans matchup. And I'll go with Holiday. He's a little bit cheaper than Kyrie. He's at 8,300 tonight. Starting to look a little bit more like himself these last couple of games. He missed 2 games with what ended up being a minor knee injury, which was encouraging, I think, almost to find out, because he just didn't look like himself through the first 2 games of the season. But he had 41 DraftKings points last Thursday, had 16-6. Against OKC on Saturday. So maybe not quite playing up to his potential, but I think this is a spot against a very vulnerable Nets team where Drew Holiday could kind of get back to the type of performances that a lot of people expected when they took him in the top 25.
Ryan, what about you? Where are you looking on this one?
Guards, I like James Harden, and he's without his buddy Russell Westbrook tonight versus Memphis. And I feel like that's a chalk pick, but I like it. He has career lows this year. 3-point percentage, he's only shooting 21%. Field goal percentage only 37%. I feel like having a game without Russ is going to make him feel more like this is last season. So I think this is a good game for him to kind of step back, get back into the swing of things of him being the main ball handler without trying to fit another piece in with him.
All right, Harden, he'll cost you $10,800. So, Ryan, any value plays worth building around?
Yeah, that's not quite my value pick, but I like Ja Morant versus Houston. So on the other side of that, and here's why. I have this theory I think I've mentioned on here a couple times. Young players, rookies, sophomores in the league, I feel like they step their game up when they play against players that they look up to or are the league's best. So I like Ja Morant going up against James Harden tonight. Last game, not to mention, he's playing well. He's on a heater right now. 24 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. So at 6.6K, I think that's a lot of value right there for Ja Morant.
Nick, what about you? Any value plays worth building around?
Yeah, Morant's a good one. I agree with just about everything Ryan said there. I'll throw out a few more names. Aaron Baines going up against those Embiid-less Sixers. He had a couple of huge games recently, had nearly 60 DraftKings points against Golden State last week. Chris Clemens, a guy who went off, I guess, by his standards in his first NBA game last night for Houston in a game that got out of hand really early. He should see increased minutes without Russ, maybe a little bit risky, but a guy who's basically minimum price. Eric Paschall, Kai Bowman, Jordan Poole, kind of the usual rotation now for Golden State, given their injury situation. I think those guys are all worth taking a look at. And then another guy I think will be popular is Mario Hezonja. He's at 3,700 for Portland, again, going up against Golden State. No Zach Collins, played 37 minutes on Saturday. Maybe can't expect that night tonight, but this is just not a very deep team right now in Portland. So I think as long as Zach Collins is out, Hezonja is going to be looking at around 30-plus minutes, you would think, most nights.
All right, slate approved pick time. Who's your lock for tonight's 6-game slate, Nick?
This is a tough one. I went back and forth, but I think I'm going to go Karis LeVert. I like the value at 6,000. I talked already about how much I like some of the other guards in this matchup. And, for better or for worse, I think Karis LeVert is kind of the Nets' second best player right now. I don't know if that's necessarily what they want long term. And certainly they have someone waiting on the bench to eventually be the sidekick with Kyrie Irving. But for right now, it's Karis LeVert. This New Orleans defense has been terrible. They've been one to target all season so far. Not a big defense guy, not a big assist guy, but he's someone who takes a lot of shots. And I think against this New Orleans defense, it's a night where they could be falling.
Ryan, who's your slate approved pick for tonight?
Gun to my head, if I'm looking for a lock to get the best value about points I could score, I'm sorry to be basic, but it's James Harden. No rust tonight, and that's basically it. I mean, Harden, like I said, is going to go back to his ways of being the ball-dominant guy and doing ISO possessions for 20 seconds and maybe passing it. Probably not. He's never afraid to take any shot on the floor. So I'm sorry, but it's Harden, my lock.
Nothing wrong with being basic. All right. Thanks, guys. For all of you watching on YouTube, we will be back with Reed and Jeff to talk football. Prop bets specifically for tonight's Cowboys-Giants matchup.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with the DraftKings update, can you believe it? We are halfway through the football season, 9 weeks in. How are the MVP odds shaping up over on the DK Sportsbook? Russell Wilson, the front runner, at plus 250. The Seahawks QB has turned in a handful of spectacular performances this year, including this past Sunday's game against the Bucs. He leads the NFL with 22 touchdown passes. He has a QB rating north of 100 in all but one game this year that was just over 65 against the Ravens. And speaking of Baltimore, Lamar Jackson files in behind Wilson at plus 350 to win league MVP. The early season success clearly was not a fluke. The second-year dual threat has accounted for 17 touchdowns, 12 passing, 5 rushing, plus Jackson set an NFL record Sunday night against the Patriots. He has the most rush yards by a quarterback through the first 8 games of his season, 637, topping Michael Vick's 576 in 2006. After that, you got Rodgers, Watson, and Mahomes trickling in, and then there's Christian McCaffrey at plus 1,600. We haven't seen a running back win MVP since Adrian Peterson in 2012. CMC definitely making a case to rekindle that. 5 games with 117 rushing yards at the very least and 13 total touchdowns. That's tops in the NFL. Oh, and I know you were all curious. Baker Mayfield's odds are at plus 25,000. And another sexy pick before the year, Mitchell Trubisky. His odds have sunk to plus 75,000.
As promised, Jeff and Reed are back to chase or fade the following statements, in this case, prop bets for tonight's Cowboys-Giants matchup. So, Jeff, the game total is 48 points. Cowboys won 35-17 in Week 1. Chase or fade that we have another over in the cards tonight.
I kind of think this total is pretty much perfect, Jesse. I mean, if you look at how the Giants have gone this year, I mean, at home they've allowed a lot of points to opposing. I mean, you take out the Washington game, they've allowed at least 27 points to their opponents. So that would probably have me leaning maybe a little bit towards the over, but then again, you are relying on Daniel Jones to come through. I think if I had to choose, like gun to my head, I would probably take the under. I do feel like 48 points is pretty much exactly where this should be set, though. I mean, these are two pretty good offenses, but again, you're trusting Daniel Jones to get it done. The Cowboys on the road worries me a little bit. They might just be settling for field goals, just trying to scrape out a win. So I would lean the under ever so slightly.
Trusting Daniel Jones makes me a little nervous, Reed. Does it make you a little nervous?
Yeah, of course. Look, they're 4-3 in the over, right, with the plus minus of close to a touchdown in their overs. And so you like what Dallas is doing. The Giants give up 31 points or have given up 31 points over the last 3 games. And Dallas, over the last 5 road games, 4-1 hitting the over. So even though they like to play at home, these guys can play well on the road, and they're scoring points. It's not just hand the ball off to Zeke and let him do his work. It's Dak Prescott and his offense really getting geared up so far. So, yes, you have to have some faith in Daniel Jones. Garbage time Daniel Jones is still garbage. It's still points racked up. Hopefully he can get into the end zone. Hopefully Saquon Barkley can carry this over. I think they do. I think they hit the over here.
All right, speaking of Danny Dimes, he did not play in that first matchup. So Chaser fade that he goes over his projected passing total of 240.5 tonight, Reed.
Yeah, this one's tough. I'm going to say just under. And the tiebreaker for me is really this defensive line for Dallas against the Giants' offensive line. They've allowed over 20 sacks so far this season. And this defensive line for Dallas is pretty strong. Like, even though they have a couple of guys banged up, I still think that this defensive line can get to Daniel Jones. I do think they hand the ball off, and they give the ball to Saquon quite a bit just to make sure that defensive line is kept at bay. We'll say that Leighton Vander Esch is probably doubtful, probably not going to play, and so you do like the Evan Ingram matchup against Jeff Heath. You do like some of these spot matchups where if they get a big play, and we've seen Saquon in some spots get these big chunk plays, or Evan Ingram be able to use his athleticism to get these big plays, that's going to help. But relying on a couple of those per game from Daniel Jones is tough, so I'm going to say under.
Jeff, you want to fade that he goes over his projected passing total of 240.5?
I mean, I don't love Daniel Jones for a big game, but I'll still take the over here just for a couple reasons. One thing, I think he'll be passing late. I mean, look, the Cowboys are relatively healthy, like Reed said, especially on offense, which is a good thing. I think the Giants are going to be behind in this game. I think Daniel Jones will be passing it late, which should push him over. The Giants' offensive line has been a little bit better this year, too. So they should be able to keep him upright. Daniel Jones a little bit more mobile. I think he'll go over 240 tonight.
Ezekiel Elliott only had 53 rushing yards in week 1, but it was just his first game back after his holdout. So with a number of games now under his belt, Chaser fade that Zeke goes over his 87.5-yard rush projection, Jeff.
I am actually going to take the under here, shockingly. I like the spot for Dak Prescott in the Cowboys pass game. Dak has absolutely just destroyed the Giants over his career. I really feel like the Giants are going to be trying everything they can to stop Zeke Elliott. And the rush defense has actually been one of the bright spots this year. They're only allowing 4 yards per carry, which is like in the top half of the league. So I do feel like this is going to be a Dak game. I feel like Zeke could just get grinded out a little bit, maybe be more of a factor as a PPR. But yeah, I'll take the under here.
Reed, you going to go under here too?
No, I'll go with the over.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I get what Jeff is saying, but if you take a look at Zeke, which is really weird, seven times he's played in primetime games, either Thursday or on Monday night. His average in terms of yards per game is right around this number. I mean, that's probably where they got it. But if you look at the Giants, and again, if I'm going with a tiebreak here, Giants giving up 110 rushing yards. If you just look at this offensive line in Dallas, it's the exact opposite with the Giants, right? This offensive line is really strong, and the Giants' defensive line, they're giving up close to 2 yards before contact to running backs, and one of the best guys, either with when guys are trying to hand tackle him or arm tackle him, whatever it may be, one of the best guys to break off these tackles is Ezekiel Elliott. And so I'm going to lean that he gets probably under 100, right around that 95, 97 range that he's going to go over this mark.
All right, Reed, Saquon had 120 yards in week 1, but no touchdowns. He's plus 250 to score twice in this one, so Chaser fade that he can hit pay dirt twice tonight.
I'm going to fade this. Look, they're going to need Saquon Barkley to do his best to get this, to hit this number. And he's number 3 in terms of any player in their teams in terms of opportunity share, which is targets plus running back carries. He's got close to 90% on his team. He is the focal point of this offense, and rightfully so. But if you look at the red zone opportunities that the Giants do have this year, it's around 2.3 per game. They're just not getting in the red zone. And Dallas, while they're not the greatest in terms of keeping teams outside of the red zone, they're giving up about 3.4 red zone opportunities per game. I still think that this Giants offensive line is going to have it's going to be tough, and this offense moving it towards those scoring zones is going to be tough, even though they're at home. So I'm going to say under.
All right, Reed, you don't like Saquon to score twice. Is there anybody in this game that you do like to score multiple times?
It's going to be Evan Ingram. If Saquon Barkley is the clear-cut number 1, but Evan Ingram, if you look, and I mentioned it earlier, Jeff Heath is giving up 100% catch rate to his opposing person that he's guarding. Every single target that comes Jeff Heath's way, it's caught by the offensive person that he's guarding. And Evan Ingram should be that guy in this matchup. And Jeff Heath is a guy who stops a run. He's a big hitter, but he's not a coverage safety. And so if they're not shifting nickel coverage onto Evan Ingram, this guy is going to absolutely eat. And so I like Evan Ingram, if not Saquon Barkley.
Jeff, chase or fade Saquon can hit Pater twice tonight. And if you're going to fade it, is there anybody you like to score twice?
I mean, I don't mind the prediction. I do feel like with Van Der Esch banged up and stuff and just Saquon in a primetime game, I don't feel like it's a bad prediction. I just don't think these odds are quite up there with what I want. And look, I mean, it's for good reason. He's only plus 250. I mean, this is a complete, like, every down back, obviously, in a primetime game. I get why we're not getting better odds here, but I just feel like, touchdowns can be a bit of luck. You never know. You might get like a Daniel Jones sneak on the goal line or something, where Saquon might just hobble off for like one play. It's just not quite big enough for me. I like the Evan Ingram call by Reed. I would probably go up to Michael Gallop on the other side, who's got a fantastic matchup. Janoris Jenkins is going to be over Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper has had all of his big games mostly in home anyways. But Michael Gallup destroyed the Giants in week 1, and I wouldn't be shocked if he had another big game here. So I think Ingram I like the odds there, but I like the odds on Michael Gallup for 2 touchdowns too.
All righty, thanks guys. Talking good old-fashioned hockey after a quick update from the Pat Mayo experience.
Giants hosting the Cowboys. Now that we've talked through the game and the props a little bit, do you think that Michael Gallup and Golden Tate would both make your DraftKings Showdown roster?
So Golden Tate's price point, it's still fine. It's $6,800. It's something that I probably just don't get to as much because Michael Gallup's very close. Michael Gallup, I like a lot as a captain option at $7,400, who is $2,600 cheaper than Amari Cooper. And there's a lot of expensive captains on the slate. I mean, you have 4 in the 5-figure range. So Gallup's the guy that I liked for some salary relief. It makes sense there. I probably get to him more often. I'll have some with Golden Tate. Lately, when I do play showdowns, and I haven't been playing like the last 2 or 3 weeks, they just haven't been that great. I'll play like 30 to 50 lineups or so and just get to exposures. And I would imagine that Gallup would be like a top 1 or 2 captain option for me.
I would think that with the reverse line movement in this game, with the money shifting towards the Giants, if I'm going to play a DraftKings Showdown roster this week, I think it will be Giants-centric instead of Cowboys-centric, which means probably I don't want to fade Zeke for the life of me, but I think if you fade him, go with Barkley and Tate and either Slayton or Ingram with Daniel Jones, and then find Gallup and someone else to bring it back with. Maybe if you think that Dallas wins the game but the Giants cover, maybe it's the Dallas kicker that you end up using?
Yeah, I actually like getting the kickers in this spot. I do prefer the Dallas kicker. You could look at like just field goal over under props to get an idea of which kicker you should roster because they're always like the same price. So there's a little bit of an advantage on doing that. I like Daniel Jones. So like I'll have some more, maybe not leaning Giants heavy lineups, more like balanced 3 and 3 lineups, 3 from each side. If anything, that's probably the most of Giants I'll get. But I like Daniel Jones. If you're picking a quarterback, they're in the winning lineups like 85% of the time. He's $2,400 cheaper than Dak. And if you're just thinking about how this goes positive for Daniel Jones, I mean, he's going to throw the ball more, you would imagine, as a 6.5-point home underdog. That's a great spot for quarterbacks to be in as home underdogs. But also just pricing wise, like if Dak has a good game and he's not rushing in touchdowns, it's probably Gallup and Amari Cooper or Zeke you need in your lineup and not Dak at that point, just price wise, which just makes it a lot easier. An $8,000 quarterback, you would think that this is, I don't even know who's starting, like Brandon Allen or somebody who has not shown an ability to at least put points up and move drives and keep them alive. So Daniel Jones at 8,000, he seems like one of the most mispriced guys right there with Gallup on the slate.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Just looking at the player props and seeing if we can glean anything from that, Dak is projected, at least his over-under is 279.5 passing yards. Daniel Jones is 240.5 for passing yards. Yet, if you look at passing attempts, Daniel Jones is projected for 1 more passing attempt than Dak. So if you just think that Daniel Jones can have a good game here, then he is the guy to take. I mean, if there was no salary attached to it, obviously you play Dak Prescott. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. And also, it's a spot where like Dak gets there if he spreads the ball around, which he can do with this offense, but then his wide receivers are both or one of them definitely needed over him at the price point. And the real thing you need probably here is Dak to have like a 50-plus rushing yard day or 1 to 2 touchdowns on the ground so he actually pays off that tag without needing the receivers. What I've been doing a lot, and I think I mentioned it before, is just like excluding players from a player pool just to get totally unique, have 0% of them. Because Dak has rushing upside, I probably don't do that here, and the price tag's not ridiculous, like 11,000 plus we've seen on some of these quarterbacks, but I'll probably take a stance on one of these players that you would expect to be like top 8 in ownership and just have 0%. And that's just the way that I usually get unique. If I had to guess where that leans right now, it probably comes in maybe on a guy like Evan Ingram at where his price point is.
What a treat, folks. I got DraftKings contributor Ben Zwyman joining me right now. Wow. Zwy Dog, what it do, baby? It's a pleasure, as always, to have you here.
Yes, happy to be here, Jesse. How's your day going? How's your Monday?
It's so good. It's great. All right, this is NHL opening face-off. Need your top plays for tonight. So who is your must-play guy, Zwei?
Yeah, so my must-play guy is Artemi Panarin of the Rangers. They have a great matchup at home against the Senators. The Rangers have won 3 of 4. Ottawa's taking a lot of penalties, so Panarin's on that power play. That bodes well. I mean, his price is really cheap. It's under 7K. His price has actually fluctuated a lot this season. It's been hovering around like 6K. Now it's up 900 since the last time around because of the matchup. So yeah, it sort of tells you what kind of ceiling Panarin has, and no Zibanejad. No Mika Zibanejad still for the Rangers. So yeah, Panarin should skate a lot of ice time in this game. And again, it's a really good matchup. So yeah, I think he's the guy that you can sort of differentiate your lineups, because obviously the Bruins are playing tonight. So you'll see a lot of lineups with Boston's first line in them. So yeah, I think Panarin sort of gets you a little off the grain there.
Are we talking? You said Boston's playing tonight. You'll see a lot of people playing their first line, but which line or team are you going to be looking to stack?
Yeah, I mean, again, the Bruins' first line is always a great stack, but I'm actually looking to the Predators' first line in this matchup against the Red Wings with Calle Jarnkrok, Ryan Johansson, and Victor Arvidsson. All of them are priced under 6K, so it's pretty cheap. Like I said, the matchup against the Red Wings is really good. The Red Wings have allowed 29 goals over their last 7 games, which is a little over 4 if my math is correct. But yeah, again, the affordability really stands out here. A lot of lineups will be on the Bruins' first line. A lot of lineups will be targeting that Rangers-Senators game. I think more lineups will probably lean towards stacking Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchene in that game. So I think you're actually going to get a little lower ownership on Predators' first line. And Arvidsson seems like a guy that he's just primed for a breakout. He's really had like sort of a down season, and it's reflected in his price. He's only 5,800. So I think he's a guy that on this line can really get it going. And this is the matchup. This is the perfect matchup for that.
All right, who's in goal for Team Zweigat tonight?
Who's in goal? I got a couple of guys.
Okay.
2, 3.
Sure.
So the first one, GPP play, Darcy Kemper. I've been talking about him a lot this season. He's still underpriced. He's at 7,300. The Coyotes are on the road against the Oilers. The Oilers have been absolutely awful on offense their past couple. 13 goals over the past 7 games. So that's not very good. That's under 2 goals per game. So yeah, the Coyotes are also a very good defensive team. So this just seems like the perfect storm. They're on the road, which is why Kemper's price is down. But yeah, Kemper's coming off a shutout. So obviously with goalies, like you're looking for that streak. So he's a little streaky. So he's coming in hot, which is good. He's averaging around 28 saves per game, which is pretty decent. You're looking at a very good floor for him. And at that price, you can't really go wrong. And yeah, the guy I'm looking at in cash, which is insane, Pekka Rinne, he's been priced under 8K 3 times this season. 2 of those times were on the road. I already told you about the matchup. The Red Wings aren't very good. They've lost 10 of their past 11 games. So yeah, not playing great hockey. Pekka Rinne should start. He's slated to start, so I would check in case Juicy Saros is in net. But yeah, Pekka Rinne, 7,800. That's just an egregious price. It's absolutely insane. The Preds are a heavy favorite in this game. So I think he's the guy you can really lock in cash games. Even in GPPs, he has the type of ceiling that you're looking for in a goalie in GPPs. So I like both of those guys in that.
Well, his price might be good for a goalie, but where can you find value on this slate?
I mean, I always like looking to value on the blue line. I think if you're attacking that Boston first line, then Torrey Krug is a great defenseman to pair with them. He's going to get a lot of exposure with them, playing on the first power play. The Bruins have been really good at home. They haven't lost in regulation at home, 6-0-1. They're outscoring opponents 27-10 in those games, and Krug has at least a point in 6 of those 7 games. So you're looking at a very high floor for Krug at 5,300. If you're looking at the Preds, like I said, if you're looking to stack the Preds first line, Ryan Ellis is a good pivot off of Roman Josi, because I think a lot of lineups will be on Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchene. So if you're looking to stack the Predators first line, Ryan Ellis is a pretty decent pivot. He's a guy who's going to skate a lot of ice time. He's going to get power play 2 exposure, which is good because Detroit, again, is allowing a ton of goals and they're not very good on the penalty kill. So yeah, I think both Krug and Ryan Ellis are really good cash game plays in that 5K range.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Ben. Stay cool.
You're welcome. You too, Jess.
All right, Showdown picks are on the way after the Panel B podcast takes a look at some of the betting angles for Monday Night Football.
Cowboys -6.5. So we do this whole thing where we're just talking about now coaching and talent, right? And how coaching is harming talent. Perfect transition yet again to talk about Jason Garrett and the Cowboys going on the road. They're -6.5 to a Giants team. I was going to say fully healthy. Sterling Shepard, though, unfortunately not playing again, but still.
Concussed.
Yeah, what the hell? What's that about?
Well, I mean, head injuries, man. You know, who are we to speculate? Saquon Barkley, though, Golden Tate, this team is getting healthier overall. They're 6.5 dogs at home for a divisional primetime game. Am I just leaning too much on the Giants here?
I mean, the problem is that the Giants secondary has just been amongst one of the worst in the leagues. Like, we always kind of rag on the Eagles. Like, the Giants are very much up there. Like, Janoris Jenkins has just been roasted week after week, it feels like. DeAndre Baker, another one, they just let up so much yardage. I think it's like 15.1 yards per reception at this point now. It's just been really, really bad. So, you throw Michael Gallop in the mix, Amari Cooper in the mix. Like, it's hard to think that they can be able to come back from that. With that said, the addition of Golden Tate is not being talked about enough. Like, he has just been a target monster playing out of the slot, moving Sterling Shepard to the outside, who, like we said, is not in this game. But Daniel Jones has formed a quick rapport with Tate. And the Cowboys have had some issue with slot receivers. So I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I feel like 6.5 might be a little too high.
Sure.
I'm not kind of crazy about that line. I'd be more comfortable maybe doing the over-under in this game.
Yeah, I was just over 48.
Yeah, I think I kind of like that more than the spread. But I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I think from fantasy purposes, there's a lot of points in this game to be had.
Am I nuts for thinking if it's going to be a close game, I just go plus 255 for the Giants on the money line? Like, Garrett's going to mess this up. It's going to come down to a last-second field goal for the Cowboys. It's just whether it gets made or missed, I think.
So you're not crazy because one trend this week that I forgot to mention, on Sunday, spreads did not matter. Home teams went 11-0 against the spread, 11-0 straight up.
Sure.
Crazy.
I don't know when that's happened. And home teams this week are 12-0 against the spread because the Cardinals covered on Thursday night. They were actually the only home team to lose this week so far, though.
Hashtag thanks, Vinatieri.
Is that with Jaguars? Were they the home team?
Oh, are we?
That's the only one I wasn't sure about.
I do think they are technically the home team.
Were they home team? Doesn't matter. Whatever. I didn't mean to throw a wrench in
No,
that.
I don't think that one was counted because there were 12 games yesterday. There was the 10-game slate, the one early, and the one night. Okay. So that throws out the neutral field game.
Okay.
The 11 teams actually
true home teams.
The 11 true home teams all won and covered.
Cool.
So sharp money. This was 7.5, and sharp money took the Giants, the home team, getting the touchdown. Now at 6.5, obviously kind of a key number to be missing on. We think it might be a field goal game, but 7's a key number.
And you see it, Cowboys. So the -6.5 is -117 for the Cowboys, and the Giants are -105.
So I mean, you can potentially buy the Giants to +7 for generally that would cost -115. So you can potentially still get a touchdown on them. The thing that scares me here is how good the Cowboys are in division. If Jason Garrett has mastered one thing, it's beating these NFC East teams. Dallas is 7-0 straight up and against the spread last 7 division games, 5-0 straight up and against the spread last 5 against the Giants. So they seem to have this matchup down. That's probably why I'm going to be leaving this one alone most likely. Mm-hmm. We'll see. There's always time for a live play if something jumps out.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say my favorite play on the game, just from a spread total perspective, is the over. We should see some points. Dallas's defense definitely overrated and on the road here. We saw what they did in this stadium with the Jets. That was pretty ugly. But yeah, I mean, crazy week for the home team, which doesn't mean anything for this game, but just makes you think how valuable it can be to get points with a team at home.
Hey, I'm Carolyn Azak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Miami Heat keep proving that they are not a team to sleep on. After their 129-100 dismantling of the Rockets Sunday night, Miami is 5-1, matching the best 6-game start in franchise history. They outscored the Rockets 46-14 in the first quarter, the largest first quarter lead in an NBA game since 1987. Jimmy Butler is proving he was a perfect fit for this Miami team. He contributed across every statistical category, putting up 18 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 4 steals, and 1 block in 27 minutes against Houston. 6 members of Miami scored in double digits, including James Johnson, who racked up 17 points in his season debut. Houston ended up losing by 29 points, but it was the poor start that did them in. Maybe the Rockets let the Miami nightlife get the best of them the night before. The Heat are undefeated at home this season, but will now hit the road for a tough West Coast swing. We'll see if Miami is the real deal when they go up against the Nuggets, Lakers, and a surprising Suns team on their upcoming trip.
They are back. Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, they're DraftKings contributors. I'm Jessie Coffield. This show that you have been watching is called The Sweat. We're shutting this show down with Showdown picks. Need your top DFS plays for tonight's Cowboys-Giants Showdown contest. All right, Jeff, who is your captain's pick tonight? And please explain in excruciating detail why.
I thought you were just going to end with "we're shutting the show down." I was trying to get a little bit sad there. And
scene.
You paused. I was like, "What is going on?" No one tells me anything. No, look, I'm going with Dak Prescott here. I mean, I feel like Dak is kind of just getting shoved under the radar. He went on a bye. Everyone's talking about Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. This guy's having a pretty good season. And one thing Dak likes to do is beat up on the New York Giants, especially in New York. He's got 7 touchdowns in New York against the Giants over his last 2 meetings there. Threw for over 300 yards in their last 10 meetings. I mentioned on the last segment, the Giants actually have been pretty good at standing up to the run. I do feel like they're going to sell out against Ezekiel Elliott and really kind of make the Giants beat them with like their secondary options, which Dak has proven he can do. So I really like Dak Prescott for a big game here.
Reed, what do you think of the Dak pick, and who's your captain? Was that going to be your captain?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, this is embarrassing.
This is embarrassing. No, it's a good pick, right? I mean, the amount of money that you get to save.
I hope you think it's a good pick.
You save so much money, right? No, well, you actually do off those 2 guys, Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley. The ownership that you're getting with Zach too is probably going to be less, right? Because guys are going to click up on the top there, and they're just going to go maybe down to Amari Cooper, Michael Gallop, guys that we'll get to in a little bit. But over the last 3 games, like Dak is averaging over 300 yards, close to 330 yards passing, 3 touchdowns through the air, but 2 on the ground, and that's what you really like about Dak. And maybe that's why Zeke Elliott's upside is potentially capped, because we know Dak, when that pocket collapses, or if they're designed runs, that he can actually get it done in the red zone. And if you look at the Giants too, they're not necessarily, like, I know what Jeff is saying, like the Giants are a defense that have given up a ton of yards to the run, and so Ezekiel Elliott could be a play where if you just look at the pass too, and what they've given up to guys like Sony Michel, Devin Singletary, Frank Gore, these running backs that aren't necessarily upper echelon, they've given up big games to these guys, and so Ezekiel Elliott, I can see why you'd want to go there. And the Giants have been littered at linebacker with injuries. They finally get Alec Ogletree back for a couple of games, but he's not the same guy that he was when he was with the Rams. And so Dak Prescott in that matchup against the Giants secondary, we talked about it earlier with Janoris Jenkins and some of these other guys that aren't necessarily up to snuff. I think it's a fantastic captain's pick.
All right, Reed, who will you be stacking with your captain, Dak Prescott?
Yeah, it's going to be Michael Gallop. I mean, if you look at just savings and attacking this secondary with the Giants, Michael Gallop is your guy. Jeff mentioned it in the other segment that he went for 7 in 158 or 155 over that first week. And if you just look over the last 3 weeks before their bye, he's averaging 8 targets. He is clearly that guy. The target share, the air yards, all this, the intangibles and the sort of secondary and tertiary numbers that you do like, the volume is there. It's not necessarily going to be a Randall Cobb game. It's not going to be Jason Witten game, who are sort of glorified guys that, safety valves, if you will. But it's going to be Michael Gallup. Amari Cooper is a little expensive, right in that range where you can easily fade the guy. I think he's going to also be someone that could have a big game, but give me Michael Gallup in terms of a little pivot off of Amari Cooper in this offense, because you still get to attack this Giants secondary.
Hey, Jeff, what do you think of the Gallop pick, and who are you pairing with Dak?
I mean, this show's starting to get a little scary. This segment's a little scary.
Oh, come
my
on!
pick was Gallop, too. I like the combo. I mean, DeAndre Baker got absolutely torched. He's been torched most of the season, to be honest, and that who is Michael Gallup is going to be going against for most of this game. I will say this. I don't mind going down to a Randall Cobb or a Jason Witten in this scenario either. I really do feel like, again, Amari Cooper, going to see Janoris Jenkins, hasn't done as well outdoors with the Cowboys as he has done like at home in the Dome. So I do like going to these secondary receivers. It wouldn't shock me to see Randall Cobb pop up a bit. Jason Witten has absolutely destroyed the Giants over his career, so I don't mind going there either. Gallup is still my first choice, so I do think he has the best upside. And I will say this, we got a little extra time, so captaining a guy like Gallup or Ingram tonight, in my opinion, in this game is very viable. I think there's so many these nice offensive players with really big upside that you can do that if you're looking to save, get a little creative. I still like Dak. I think he's got great upside, but going for a Gallop or an Ingram in this spot and hoping they pop off for a couple of long touchdowns or something, it makes complete sense for Showdown.
Yeah, we do have plenty of time, so if there's anything you want to talk about, just feel free to go into it. Where can we find some value, though, Jeff?
Yeah, value. I mean, I mentioned the tight end spot. I think Witten's an okay value. I think Blake Jarwin is a guy you have to at least think about. He's not seeing the snaps, but I think people by now know his history against the Giants. Destroyed them for 3 touchdowns in Week 17 last year, and then he caught a nice touchdown against them in Week 1 too. The Giants just do not cover that area of the field very well. They're just really weak covering basically teams' secondary receivers, and Jarwin fits in that category. So if you're going Jarwin over Witten, obviously you're going for the home run plays, much cheaper. And DFS, I don't mind pairing Dak with Witten in this spot. I really don't. It's a road game. It might be a little bit closer than people think. Witten's a great safety valve. Like I said, Giants don't cover tight end. Witten likes playing against the Giants. It could really end up being a little bit more higher volume than people think here.
Reed, what do you think of Jeff's picks, and where are you looking for some value? Please tell me that you haven't selected the same ones.
No, it's not Blake Jarwin.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple or a few, and so you guys can choose which ones you like the best here. I actually like a guy on the other side in Rhett Ellison as a value. He's at $1,200. And he's not necessarily. It's Evan Ingram. That's the guy. But look at what he did against this team in Week 1. He absolutely destroyed the Cowboys. And so, even though I still think he's going to have a good game, a lot of that coverage is going to really blanket or move towards guys like Evan Ingram. But a guy like Rhett Ellison, he's not running a ton of routes, but he's running enough to where you feel comfortable about it. Over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging around 40 to 45% of the snap share, and he's getting targeted in the red zone. He's got a touchdown over the last 2 weeks, just one. But at $1,200, all you need is one. A couple other guys, too. I want the wide receiver 3 with the Giants, either Benny Fowler, guys in that, and Cody Lattimore, They're getting close to 20% air yards in terms of that entire offense. And we know that Sterling Shepard is out again with a concussion. Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, some of these guys might be gravitated more towards in terms of who's going to be that pass catcher for the Giants. But if you look at that number 3 receiver, and we see it all the time, Daniel Jones, even though he's got 5 or 6 games under his belt, these number 3 receivers always work in at some point. And so I do like one of those 3 to be your value picks. Obviously, Rhett Ellison is going to be a little bit more value because he's going to be cheaper. But the other 2, in terms of that number 3 receiver over on the Giants, because like we mentioned, Daniel Jones is going to be passing a ton if the game goes to what we think it's going to be going to. So getting the home dogs and getting the wide receiver number 3 in that offense might be beneficial.
Hey, Jeff, what do you think of the Rhett Ellison pick?
Yeah, Ellison's fine. I mean, you're kind of banking on him finding the end zone, but look, the Giants will use a couple tight ends. He's hit or miss. I mean, if I'm going down in that area, I mean, you have Tavon Austin down there, who's really just not that big. I would almost just rather go all the way down to Devin Smith if I'm going that route, because he's just a one-play wonder, but he's only $200, so that would kind of be my mega cheap play of the week, I guess, is Devin Smith. I can't say I'm in love with anyone under $1,000 though, because Devin Smith with Randall Cobb back and Gallop healthy, not really seeing too many snaps.
Who are you going to be totally fading tonight, Reed? Somebody you just want nothing to do with?
Yeah, I mean, I still think Amari Cooper is going to have a decent game, but in terms of how I want to build my lineups, where I can start with Dak and then take some of these shots in the dark, these dart throws, I can still get Saquon and Ezekiel Elliott in that lineup. So Amari Cooper, even though he's going to be a guy who's going to be targeted quite a bit, even though the Giants secondary is atrocious, I think fading Amari Cooper, whose ownership is still going to be high, because like I said, people are going to want to go to Dak. Jeff and I, mentioned that he's going to be our captain. They're going to want to pair him with someone, right? And so Amari Cooper is going to be that easy pick. He does have better splits at home, but he's still a guy who gets targeted a lot. And so I just rather fade Amari Cooper in this matchup and want to get those two guys. Out of the running backs, I'd rather have Zeke over Saquon. But if it's going to be one guy on this slate that I'm going to absolutely fade, it's going to be Amari.
Jeff, who are you fading? What do you think of fading Amari Cooper?
I think fading Amari Cooper is okay. If I was making like multiple lineups, he would still be someone you want to get exposure to, just because. Even if the matchup doesn't look that good, Amari Cooper is good enough to overcome all that. So the guy I actually am pretty interested in fading here, though, is Daniel Jones. I know we did mention a couple times, like it could be a spot where he ends up throwing high volume, but it really hasn't been that way for the Giants. Daniel Jones has only thrown more than 40 times in a game once this year. He's had some hiccups, especially at home. Whenever a quarterback doesn't do well against Arizona, it gives you a little bit of pause. Now that game was played in heavy rain, so you can give him a little bit of a break, but he's been a little bit turnover prone over the last few weeks. Obviously bounced back against Detroit, although Detroit's defense has been headed in the wrong direction for the last couple weeks. So maybe not so much of a huge turnaround there. I don't mind fading him, quite frankly. I think the Dallas defense coming off a bye with a pretty good pass rush, it's a little bit scary, but I feel like in this game, you got to pick and choose. I still like Evan Ingram. I still like Saquon Barkley, but I do feel like Daniel Jones, especially paying up, I think this might be an okay fade spot for him.
Reed, what do you think about fading Daniel Jones?
Yeah, and that kind of correlates to what I was going to mention as well. If you look at the Cowboys DST, if you look at Daniel Jones too, for the last 3 games, this guy has gotten sacked quite a bit. He's thrown 4 picks. I think he's been sacked 5 times or around that number. And so, yeah, if you want to go off of what Jeff was saying and fade, Daniel Jones, it's because you think that defense is going to do well. And even though they don't have Leighton Vander Esch, they still have Jalen Smith. They have a shutdown corner. They still got 2 guys on the edge that can absolutely get to the quarterback. And so, yeah, Daniel Jones has been turnover prone for the last few games, and I don't think that's bad. And even if you want to go contrarian, if you want to fade everything that we're saying and go with the Dallas defense on the road, which is a little tough, I don't mind that as well if you're going extremely contrarian.
Reed,
yeah, I don't think either defense
Jeff.
will be. Oh, sorry. I don't think either defense is going to be highly owned tonight, which is kind of nice. So we've had a lot of showdown slates where the defense has kind of been shock. It's going to be the opposite tonight because, like I said, there's so many offensive players to choose from. So going with the Cowboys defense and like a Zeke stack, definitely be a little contrarian.
Well, before I let you guys go, how about a score prediction? Reed, just what do you think?
Yeah, even though the Giants are at home and they hope to do well, and Golden Tate is a guy that could potentially show up on a Monday night, I still think the Cowboys win by 10 points. I'll say 27-17.
Jeff, what do you think?
27-17. I agree about everything because I was basically I'll say 28-17.
Oh, his price is writing me. He's going $1 more.
I do feel like everyone is on the Cowboys, but they're still going to cover, and I do feel like the total is going to be just under or just right around 48. It just feels like one of those nights. So yeah.
A night where we all just agree on everything. Good stuff, guys. Appreciate the time as always. That's going to do it for The Sweat. We will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m., and we will see you there.